Hello again, this is Stephen Dupree of NowEnergetics.com, based on Yuen Method and the Power of Neutrality. We're back for another article and video on another area of neutrality that really is very universal. We talk about it in Yuen Method quite a bit, but the idea that about things that bother people. So a lot of people don't realize that they're actually motivated by things that bother them, and that's a very non-neutral thing to do and be. And it actually is a very high stress kind of situation and energy in people's lives to have to be bothered by something to actually, try to do something. So a lot of people have that in their energy, is that they need to get really bothered by something in order to get enough energy to do something, as an example. And that's not a good motivator. So you want to be motivated by your neutrality, right? So where this started was, I think I read an article on LinkedIn about this notion that people needed to get angry to get motivated. So it was kind of an odd article to put into LinkedIn, but I said, well, let me look at the energy of the person that wrote it, and just the energy in general of what is the best motivator. So this person's contention was anger was at least up there in the top 5 things that could motivate you, and it's a positive thing. So I took a look at this energetically, and the fact is that we all do get angry and frustrated at times. But is it the fact that you need to get angry just to do something? That's very different than getting angry from for a second in a particular situation, because we can't be neutral all the time, obviously. But we're not actually needing to get angry. We just happen to get angry. We stub our toe or something, we get frustrated, something like that. But we don't have a need to do that to motivate us to do something. So this person's contention in the article was that you actually needed to do that as a part of your everyday life. So, and we're saying, should this be a primary or the only way to motivate you to do something? Getting angry, getting frustrated, that type of thing. And for some people, they've had that in their energy their whole life. They don't realize that they're motivated by bothers, right? Being angry is a bother to a certain extent, right? So, and the way I say it here is, it's not very productive, because you're not coming from a neutral place. It creates all kinds of energetic stresses around you, in your body, and spiritually as well. So we talked about the article already. So we want our motivations really to be driven by our neutrality, right, to any particular outcome or sense of purpose. And when you use sort of what we would consider quote unquote negative emotions to fuel that sense of purpose, that motivation, it actually weakens our energy to do that. We have to create this energy to actually expend the energy. So it's we pull ourselves into a hole to react out of it, and we use that reaction energy to actually motivate us. And it's a very weakening kind of cycle, because it's like a yo-yo that keeps going up and down. You need to keep supplying that kind of cadence, and it's a very draining type of thing to do versus being neutral, as an example. So and that's really what's going on here. You elicit or you create some strong emotions, and it weakens your energy, and you sort of react out of it, and you use that energy to be motivated by, to actually do something, to get out of bed, to do whatever, right, to do the next thing in your day. So it's, to me, it's a very stressful way of dealing with everyday situations. And eventually you're going to create some kind of symptom with this. Like you can't be in this mode of being bothered by everything for so long and not have it, this ping-ponging yo-yo kind of energy, up and down energy, without it creating some kind of problem. So that's just the way it is. That's what the energy tells us anyway. So it's not a good or long or short-term strategy. So people would say, well, you're probably right, but once in a while you can do this. It's not a good short or long-term strategy. You don't want to dip your toe in there and get to the point where you notice some success one time and you're stuck in that sort of mindset of doing that all the time, always reacting, right? So one of the things I looked at with this article is, what is this author's actual energy about it? Why did they write about this? What's going on in their energy? And, how did they come up with the premise and the conclusions? So I looked at the energy of the person, and important thing is they didn't even know what was going on in their own energy in terms of what was motivating them and how they wrote the article and what they believed and that sort of thing. So again, we're looking at the authors actually not consciously aware of what's bothering them about their own bothers, right? So 3 things that came up. Is it misinterpretation? That's a very common thing to not know the actual answer and being misinterpreting what's actually going on in their cells or in their energy. And the other thing is the real bother for this person was that they weren't productive, right? So there's some issue around them being productive. And the third were the emotions that were about discouragement and demoralization. And by misidentifying it as anger, you create a bigger problem because you're not able to neutralize the energy of the things that are actually causing you the problem, right? So you misidentify it, and it's like having a wrong answer, and it adds weight to all the other things you misinterpret and get wrong answers for, right? So it kind of eventually it sucks in and attracts other wrong answers too in that case, right? So we're going to break down the 3 different things here, and that's what I go over in the article. So anger really didn't come up, right? So they were misinterpreting it because we already know up here it was more from discouragement and demoralization kind of emotions that they misidentified as anger. So that's a misinterpretation. So the real basic thing is that it wasn't even about anger with this person. It was about these other 2 things here. So and all that misinterpretation did is generate a lot of frustration and a reaction. And that reaction energy came up high enough, and then releasing it seemed like it was solving the problem. It was supplying the energy for them to get motivated to do something. So what I say here is the take from the author is, something happens and then you get angry about it, and the anger motivates you to do something productive. And the surprise is it's just the opposite. In order to be productive, because one of the real issues is not being productive, they need to misinterpret or misidentify something. And that gives you enough, that's the biggest reaction. They kind of realize that intrinsically, but not consciously, that they need to misinterpret something so that they can be frustrated with it, then they can get a reaction from it, and that generates the energy. And so they get that energy and they expend it doing a particular purpose or particular task or something like that. And they think that that's solving the problem. That person thinks that they're solving the problem. And the other part of that is they get angry, but they're really not getting angry. They're getting discouraged and demoralized. So they're actually misidentifying even the emotion that they're getting this rebound energy from. So I try to explain this a bit better because this is kind of a little bit deeper from a neutrality standpoint. I'm explaining it versus just clearing it. When we misinterpret, or we have a need to misinterpret, and we project that energy out. So it's not just that we're creating experiences in our own life or perpetuating experience or attracting experience. We attract people, places, situations that cause us to misinterpret because we need to misinterpret to generate that energy. So like we said, it's just the opposite of what we think. The person is actually attracting these experiences so they can misinterpret them, and they can get frustrated, they can get discouraged, disillusioned, demoralized, and that's the energy that they think is positive energy of anger that's giving them motivation to do something. So and it's really, when we think about it, this whole exercise here is our true self that's attracting things to remind us that we need to resolve misinterpretation. We misinterpret something to get the energy, but it's really the universe's way of saying that's what you need to resolve, right? Our true self is giving that to us, but the person doesn't understand that and doesn't know that what's really going on in their energy is the opposite of what they think. So they never actually resolve it. So it just keeps sort of ratcheting up the signal. And every time it says here, even every time you get reminded by your true self, but you don't resolve it, the energy gets thrown on the stack and it keeps growing. So that's where, you know, it's kind of like an addiction in a way that gets worse and worse over time, right? So like we say here, misinterpretations, very, very common, powerful, you know, quote unquote, negative energy. So if you have a huge effect from all these misinterpretations that you've used incrementally in the past to supply energy to do things, well, that cumulative effect, it's a very, very heavy burden to have, and it gets worse all the time. So we want to basically delete that piece of the three things that are actually going on here with this person to get them more neutral. And what we want to do is delete all the misinterpretations they've had in the past, all these negative issues with misinterpretation, right? And the second thing is not being productive. So this seems to bother this person. And, you know, we look at the story and their energy, and they have past experiences of not being productive and, you know, limiting others basically. So when we limit other people, we're actually keeping them from being productive, right? So we can do things, we can do all kinds of things back through human history that limit people. And in a way, it's a roundabout way of saying it doesn't allow them to produce anything, right? We restrict them, let's say. And so his take on not being productive, he didn't even, you know, this man didn't even know that was, you know, any part of the issue here that could be consciously acknowledged even. So, and so when you have these experiences that need to be resolved, you're more likely to attract those experiences. You're projecting out those experiences of being bothered by not being productive from previous experiences. So you actually attract that kind of experiences into your life that is kind of hinting to you and forcing you to look at it. But if you don't recognize that's what it is, you keep throwing sort of more energy on the stack that you're going to eventually need to clear, right? So, and one of the things that came up in looking at this is being punished for being caught idle. So we have, you can imagine an experience like that where, you know, maybe back through time, the person has experiences, or their ancestors have experiences of being enslaved or something, and being punished for being caught idle. And you can even think of that in the normal experience as well. So, so forcing yourself to be productive by using what they consider anger or some other energy to be motivated to be productive, it doesn't actually resolve the problem, and the person stays stuck basically, and they keep into this cycle of having to react, getting angry, that kind of thing, and it's not really resolving the problem. So we're saying here, let's get neutral and be okay with being productive and not being productive. So we want both of those extremes to be even with each other, right? So we got to be okay with being idle once in a while. You know, we have to be okay with idling and not always having to be productive all 24/7, right? We can't be productive 24/7. It's just not possible. So, and we want to delete all those experiences, and also experiences of the punishment related to not being productive, right? So you can blow off some steam and you're not going to have any energetic trigger that's going to be affecting your energy. So the third one is the person misidentified the emotion. They were talking about anger so much, but it had nothing to do with anger. It was the discouragement and demoralized energy that came from some of these other elements here, right? From punishment. Well, if you're punished for doing something, you're pretty much going to be discouraged and demoralized. So it's, you know, anger may come up a fifth or sixth or something like that, but the two major ones that are maybe not talked about as much, you know, we talk about primary emotions, but demoralized and discouraged kind of energy, and there's many more disses and that type of you know, emotional experience that we don't talk about much that come up higher than anger at times. And what I say here is it's painful to be wrong too, and especially when you can't identify what's taking place, right? You're grasping. You think you got the right answer, but you really don't have the right answer. So when you don't have the right answer, you know, this can create pains in your life, you know, because it's painful to be wrong. So again, the take was the motivating emotion is anger. And, you know, the fact that he mentioned it, you know, in the article and talks about it so much is it's already been resolved, right? It's not anger. So you got to get off that story. And those two emotions we already talked about, and it's another misinterpretation, right? So that's important to look at these things in many layers. In this case, the person has a lot of misinterpretation, misidentification. I call them misses. You know, there's a lot of ways you can miss something. You know, you can get it wrong, let's say, misidentify, misinterpret, misjudge, miscommunicate, misrepresent, all kinds of misses. You know, you can imagine all kinds of situations where you could put a miss in front of a particular. There are many of them. I think I listed 18 of them at one time, that ways you could miss things. And so we want to be neutral and okay with being wrong or wrong once in a while, right? So part of it, when you misidentify, you're wrong. When you misinterpret, you're wrong. So it's a bigger issue of wrong answer energy. So we want to be neutral with being wrong, right, not right, and wrong, not wrong. So there's another, you know, kind of higher level clearing in this to neutral that has to do with getting right answers and getting wrong answers, or being right or being wrong. So we want to clear that in both directions, right, not right, wrong, not wrong, both extremes, and get the energy even. So we don't have any of these perfectionist tendencies. We can be not going to beat ourselves up if we're wrong once in a while. And if we are more neutral about that, we're more likely not to be wrong, right? So if we always need to be right, we're going to attract that energy where it's probably going to give us the opposite. So we want to be neutral about those situations, right? Right, not right, wrong, not wrong. So the important thing here with this particular author is, you know, I call him the get angry author. When they look at those three elements, and we clear these three elements for this person, I cleared the, you know, three elements for this person, and you can improve the situation, and suddenly they feel like they don't have to get angry anymore to get motivated, right? So when we want that, it's a better place to be. You don't want to be motivated by your bothers, right? So that's really important element. Somewhere down here, I'm not sure why it didn't refresh here. Let's see if I can refresh it one more time and see what I added an image here, and it's the hexagon of bothers. And I guess the media didn't get quite updated here, but there's a hexagon of bothers. You know, when something bothers you, upsets you, disturbs you, so on. There was eight different elements to that. And we want to be neutral to that hexagon of bothers. And we can clear that as a group, even when we do neutrality clearings, to get ourselves, clear the energy, get ourselves more neutral, and make sure that we're not motivated by these negative kind of situations or emotions. And when we're, like I say here, when we're neutral, we're far less likely to attract or create situations. And really, those situations are actually reminding us, if we're listening carefully with our energy, it will remind us what we need to resolve. Our true self is always telling us what we need to resolve, right? Whether we have plugs in our ears or not. Most people, you know, probably have plugs in their ears and are not really listening very carefully to their energy. Because we're projectors as well. We're projecting out a picture, and if we have our eyes closed and we don't look at it, or we don't interpret it correctly, we're not going to know what our issue really is with our energy or with neutrality in general. So like I say here, it's better to energetically determine the real bother in a situation, use strong and weak, use neutrality kind of clearing, so we can change the energy and get neutral rather than perpetuate the pattern of always taking the drama route and reacting. So the whole point of this is you don't want to have the drama, right? You want to be doing things and motivated by a sense of neutral purpose without needing to create drama to get motivated to do things. So that's really the bottom line here. So that's are you motivated by bothers? Now at the bottom here, there's a couple of articles here that I have that are related, and you could look at other articles on my Power of Neutrality website. We already have a video on the paradox of positive thinking. There's another kind of trap that I talk about with disapproval, And there's another article I'm going to write eventually on the disses and the misses. So there's all these disses, the disapproval, discouragement, that type of thing. There's all these disses that create blocks in our energy that we need to ferret out with energetic testing and so on, and clear ourselves to neutral. And here's an article here about drama. This is a pretty good one. Again, kind of the impetus for that was also another LinkedIn article. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for watching my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.